Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. If they can sell us 10%, we will destroy all the Russians' ballistic missiles. I have 1%. So that was President Volodymyr Zelenskyy speaking to CNN about Ukraine's increasingly acute shortage of Patriot interceptors as Russian ballistic attacks intensify and Kyiv heads toward another difficult winter. At the same time, Zelenskyy is warning that Vladimir Putin could mobilize hundreds of thousands of additional troops after Russia's September parliamentary elections. Well, on Tuesday, Moscow released former U.S. Marine Robert Gilman, detained in Russia since 2022, in what U.S. officials described as a humanitarian gesture with no concessions in return. And joining us now is Stephen Moore, founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Good to have you back with us. Welcome.
Sasha, always great to be with you.
So I want to start with this latest comment by President Zelenskyy. He said this in a CNN interview. So he just needs that 10% of supplies of those interceptors. That is enough. First of all, what do you make of that? Is that realistic? And how much will that appeal be listened to?
Well, I live in Kyiv, and so I very intimately understand the need for Patriot interceptors here. And yeah, the problem is that there's just not that many Patriots left in the world because U.S. military doctrine says that if you have an incoming object, missile, drone, whatever it happens to be, at a high-value target like U.S. military base, then you fire a Patriot at it. And if it's important enough to fire one Patriot, you fire two Patriots. So we have a situation where we have these expensive $4 million Patriots that they only make 600 of a year that are being fired at $35,000 Shahed drones. And the Ukrainians have figured out how to take down Shaheds and with many other means, and the United States of America just unfortunately has not taken that lesson from the Ukraine war. And so everybody that needs these Patriots is suffering. And but it doesn't take that many because the only thing that the Ukrainians can't intercept is these ballistic missiles, and you could do that with 10%. I believe Zelenskyy when he says if he had 10% of the Patriots, he could protect his country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also he went on and said 5% of that stock he needs will get him through the winter. So, I mean, I know we have to verify if that's correct, but as you said, if this is something the president has made that appeal to the Americans, let's see how that goes. I also want to go a little bit further in what Ukraine is doing. I know that you said you're based in Kyiv, you know the pulse of what's going on. Tell us a bit more what the Ukrainians have been doing also looking at the Black Sea. I mean, I think they've been using some of their own domestically made stuff for some progress there, pushing the Russian fleet even further back. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, well, Vladimir Putin has his own air defense problems because Ukrainian drones, Ukrainian missiles, and all this stuff is homegrown. All this stuff is made in Ukraine. The Ukrainian defense tech has, Ukraine almost doesn't have a navy. The desert country of Algeria has a bigger navy than Ukraine, yet Ukraine has sunk dozens of ships in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, many of them illegally smuggling oil. And the Ukrainians, again, with their home defense tech, have taken out, they have hit 11 of the largest refineries in Russia, and they have taken the rate at which the Russians refine crude back to 2002 levels, so back to 24 years ago. And this is affecting the Russian ability to wage war. It's affecting the Russian population's ability to buy benzene and travel. And so this is what's happening here is that Ukraine is paying the price for freedom in the blood of civilians. And this has been going on for quite a while. And without the Patriot interceptors, that price has gone up. But again, Vladimir Putin has a lot of problems. And I think the skies over Moscow, that's an important battlefield. But the other important battlefield is in Congress, because there is a bill in Congress that's being considered that would put sanctions, put tariffs on the top 5 buyers of Russian oil. And of course, the Ukrainians are doing everything they can to keep people from buying Russian oil by destroying it. And if Congress could also create a disincentive to buy Russian oil, then that could really bring Vladimir Putin to the bargaining table.
Now, you mentioned an interesting point there, oil, and let's go in a bit further. I mean, at the same time, in this one particular port city in Novorossiysk, this is in Russia, is on the Black Sea. This is where a lot of the Russian fleet has moved. It's also an oil transit point. Now, that has been hit by the Ukrainians as they're looking for these different targets. But at the same time, just recently, I think there was an actual a telephone call between Vice President Vance and Zelenskyy, I think on the 31st of July. This is later picked up by the FT, and they're saying that Vance has basically told the Ukrainians, don't attack this particular port because there is some very important pipeline, Kazakh oil coming through there. So the Americans making a request here through the vice president. What do you make of that in terms of de-escalate this, don't do this? Apparently, the Ukrainians said we'll abide by that request, but what kind of a signal does that send us?
Well, to me, the irony is rich because Vice President J.D. Vance has adopted Biden's foreign policy. And you may recall a couple of years ago that Jake Sullivan, the author of Joe Biden's fear-forward foreign policy regarding Ukraine, went to Kyiv and asked Zelenskyy to stop bombing Russian refineries because it might interfere with Joe Biden's reelection campaign. And so you have J.D. Vance now adopting that tactic from Joe Biden's playbook and calling Zelenskyy and saying, could you stop bombing this particular port? And what is crucial to understand is that Russia is an army. Russia is a gas station with an army, and if you cut off the gas revenues, the army can't do much. And that's a great tactic by the Ukrainians to stop this war with the minimal loss of life. And yet now we have 2 presidential administrations that are pushing back on this strategy of denying Russia oil revenue.
But at the same time, I mean, the interesting point here is that with this particular one where it was requested, this oil flow, this pipeline coming then from Kazakhstan, there's several American commercial interests included in that. Is that behind all this? Is that the DNA, or is there something else? And you mentioned Biden, but what else is behind this particular decision by the Vice President?
Well, that particular, it's the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, and it's a joint venture between Russian oil companies and Chevron and Exxon, and so that is the nature of that. So there is U.S. interest involved, but the Russians have bombed McDonald's. The Russians have bombed, several different American companies here in Ukraine, and it hasn't warranted a call from the Vice President of the United States in regards to that. So it's a little frustrating, And again, there's those of us that, I'm a Republican, and I like to see a strong foreign policy. So when I see the Republican administration fall back into the Biden administration's tactics, it's really disappointing.
Let me also ask you about strong signals. Earlier this week, this former U.S. Marine, Robert Gilman, was released by Moscow. Apparently, very specifically stated, no concessions because of that. It was a gesture of humanitarian nature. What do you read into that? I mean, how significant is this?
Well, listen, it is great to see an American come home after being unjustly locked up in Russia. But the reason that the Russians lock these people up is so they can return them later and get applause for it. So it's a propaganda stunt, and it's this poor guy, former U.S. Marine, who has been in a Russian prison for entirely too long. There's 6 more, maybe as many as 10 Americans that are currently locked up in Russia. So what I'm hoping is that Putin expects to get applause for this humanitarian gesture, but what I want to see is this reminding Americans that Putin is not our friend. Putin is falsely imprisoning American citizens. And of course, Putin is sending weapons to Iran to use against U.S. service members. And and there's any number of hybrid attacks that Putin has used against the United States. Putin is an enemy of the United States, and the American people need to be reminded of that.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I mean, looking at the, let's say, the concept here of timing or correlation, can we make that case here? Are these things connected? The release of this former Marine, the request by the Vice President to not attack these pipelines. Is there some correlation in all this, or is that too much of a stretch?
Yeah, I am. Gosh, I don't know. I'm not seeing that. You may be right, because there's who knows what kind of mysteries swirl around the Kremlin. But I am actually wondering what kind of deal that Zelenskyy got to stop attacking these. Is Zelenskyy going to get something out of, he's promised to stop attacking it, and they've stopped attacking this Novosibirsk, the Caspian Pipeline Consortium. So did he get something out of it? And maybe that has something to do with the Patriots. Maybe there'll be more Patriots coming this way.
All right. Speaking of mysteries of the Kremlin, another question. And we've got Vladimir Putin up for what they call a fair election, a parliamentary election in September. There's much talk about another mobilization, several, maybe up to 100,000 more Russians. I mean, last time this happened, last time they did that in Russia was in September, I think in 2022. That led to loads of protests, many Russian men leaving the country. If he does this, if he does call this before the vote or after the vote, what do you think is going to happen? How politically does this affect him if he does go ahead with another major, let's say, action for mobilization in Russia?
Well, for all the mysteries surrounding the Kremlin, there's no mystery who's going to win this election. It's Vladimir Putin's party, and the only mystery is whether he's going to win by 105% or 110%. So he has outlawed the last remaining major opposition party, and of course his political opponents all tend to be defenestrated, and to defenestrate someone is the act of throwing someone or something out of a window. And these elections are in the tank for Putin. Now, that being said, he would not announce a mobilization until after them, and that is what we're hearing, is that he will mobilize something on the order of 500,000 recruits. And what does this mean for the war? Well, he is having a lot of trouble getting volunteers, because currently everyone fighting in Ukraine is a volunteer, and they're getting paid exorbitant amounts of money, as much as an $80,000 signing bonus in some places. And if you're the family of one of these people that gets killed that's fighting in Ukraine, then you get in excess of $100,000 in death benefits. So conscripts presumably will make much less money than that. They will also be less motivated, less highly trained, and they will just be additional fodder into the war machine. And currently in the 70-mile wide no-go zone, in the kill zone in Ukraine, the average life expectancy of a Russian recruit is about 35 minutes, because the Ukrainians have made 7 million, 8 million drones and are pumping them into the area near the front. So, it is, you don't want to see more soldiers go into the front, but it is just a matter of how many drones the Ukrainians can make, and how many drone pilots they can get.
So this is still one of those big questions. Like you said, the war does continue, but thanks for giving us the latest there. Always appreciate having you with us. Stephen Moore there, founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Thanks so much.
Great to be with you.
And thank you for watching World Talks, but do stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.